Welcome to the Thoughtful Leader podcast. My name is Ben Brearley. I'm a leadership coach and the founder of Thoughtful Leader. The Thoughtful Leader podcast is all about short, sharp leadership advice because thoughtful leadership is good leadership. Welcome to episode 271 of the Thoughtful Leader podcast. This episode is all about having a favourite employee and some of the traps that you could fall into. Now, I know what you're saying. No, I don't have a favourite employee. Well, you probably do. I always used to. So let's look at the common pitfalls of that and what we might do about it. And let's get into that right now. Now, if you're like many leaders, you possibly have a favourite employee at work. So what's your gut reaction to that statement when I say that? Is it to strenuously deny the accusation or to begrudgingly accept it? Or perhaps you don't have any team members that you really like at all. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a favourite employee unless it has an impact on the way you are leading. So in this episode, I'm going to take a look at the potential signs that you might favour a certain team member and the impact that might have. And then I'll look at what you might do to stop this from becoming an issue. So some people listening to this might be annoyed that I'm raising this topic and they might dismiss it altogether. After all, good employees are like gold. They make your life and work much easier. They go over and above for you and they help to pull other team members in line. It could be that they role model the behaviours that you want to see and help to drive positive change in the team. They may also simply have a personality that you gel with more easily. Now, you might find yourself feeling frustrated that I would even raise this topic because it may feel like I'm suggesting that you can't develop close relationships with your team members. But wait, I'm not talking about good employees, I'm talking about having a favourite employee. So it's great to have people you can rely on and trust, but if this goes too far, there are potential issues that can come about. Now, here are some of the warning signs that I see about having a favourite employee. The first one is spending too much time. If you find yourself spending more time with one team member than all the others, you may actually be playing favourites. The second one is confiding. When we develop a close relationship with a team member, we may confide in them, telling them things that they potentially should not be hearing. This could include confidential management or company information, or your opinions about other team members. You also might find that you listen to fewer opinions. When we have a favourite employee, we may pay attention to their suggestions more often, and while you're listening to them, you may not be hearing what others have to say. And I also notice some leaders call certain employees their 2IC, which is basically your second in command. And if this isn't actually a formal part of their job description, this person could be your favourite employee. Now, you might be going, well, what's the big deal about all this? Well, let's look at that part next. And there's a related podcast episode number 228 that I urge you to check out on this topic as well. Should you be friends with your team members? That's really an important one that comes up quite a lot in leadership. Okay, so let's look at the potential problems of the favourite employee. Now, a favourite employee can be a trusted ally and confidant. They can make you feel like you're not going it alone and you have someone to talk to. But as a result, it can be challenging to try to pull back from this type of relationship. However, it's important that we don't play favourites and we manage to set good boundaries around our relationships with our team members. Otherwise, there are some potential issues that might occur, and the first one is freezing out other team members. One issue with having a favourite employee is that you tend to spend more time with them than other team members. Now, while you might not regard this as an issue, the other team members might. There may be people in your team who would like to have greater opportunities to work and interact with you or have more opportunities for development. But when they see your time being taken up by your favourite team member, they may start to withdraw because they know they're not part of the in-group or the purple circle, as some people call it. Now, in turn, you may regard their behaviour as evidence that they are disinterested or unmotivated, which reinforces your opinion that your favourite is actually better than the rest of them. And guess what? It means that you'll continue to spend more time with your favourite and you'll feel justified in doing that. And I just want to remind you before we continue that you can book in a free consultation with me for coaching on the show notes page, thoughtleader.com/271. And yeah, it's a great time early this year to engage in coaching and start trying to achieve your leadership goals. I get a real buzz out of helping thoughtful leaders do better so we can have more thoughtful leaders in senior positions in organizations, because that's what makes work better. So get in touch if that's something you're interested in. The second problem that we have with a favorite employee is compromising integrity. Now, close relationships at work can be comforting and supportive, so it's tempting to want to cultivate them. However, it's better if these relationships happen at the right level. For example, relationships with peers at the same level may be more appropriate. And when we have a favorite employee, we're more likely to confide in them. We might confide in them about the upcoming restructure or the performance of other team members. In other words, about things that shouldn't necessarily be their business. A favorite employee provides you with this temptation, and the more temptation you have, the greater chance you may fall prey to it and compromise your integrity, even if you don't do it on purpose. And there's a related article which I quite like. Well, I wrote it, so of course I like it, but it's an important topic is what I'm trying to say. And it is why even good leaders can show a lack of integrity. You can find that on the show notes page as well. Another factor that comes up with a favorite employee is the potential for inappropriate influence. Now, one of the biggest challenges I find with the favorite employee is the fact that they have more access to you than other people at the same level. This means that they can get their ideas on the table and influence you more easily. This can become a big problem when they start to provide opinions about other team members too. Now, in the worst cases, a favorite employee may spread false perceptions about other team members to make themselves look good. Now, if the manager is blind to this, they are much more likely to have their opinions influenced about the capability, integrity, and motivation levels of other team members. This can mean that the favorite employee has an opportunity to undermine other people in the team. Now, a recent example I came across was when a favorite team member continuously remarked about a colleague being off sick in a seemingly innocent way. Now, over time, this made the manager feel as if the other team member couldn't be relied upon to deliver because they were often sick. Now, in reality, the team member had taken a recent sick day, but this certainly wasn't out of the ordinary or repeated behaviour. Now, the motive of the favorite employee in this case was not clear. Was it to discredit the other team member, or were they simply being honest? Regardless, the additional opportunity to influence is a potential challenge that leaders need to watch out for. And lastly, managers who play favorites need to know that their reputation may be being compromised. Now, why is this? Well, because other people notice what you're doing. Other people notice that you spend more time with your favorite or delegate them more interesting work, and this can decrease your perceived credibility. It decreased your credibility because people may believe that you are being influenced inappropriately by others, that the favorite employee has you wrapped around their little finger. Now, this all translates to a perception of unfairness, weak leadership, and a potential lack of opportunity for others in the team. So we definitely want to avoid those things. Okay, so what should you do if you have a favorite employee? And if you listen to my podcast, you'll know that I'm always trying to come up with things that you can try to implement. I don't just talk about the issues, I try to give you something you can go and work on. So if you find yourself in the position of having a favorite employee, here are a few suggestions that may help you avoid some of the common pitfalls. The first one is just to monitor the time you spend. Pay attention to the time you spend with team members. You don't need to spend equal time with everyone because that's quite hard to do. But if there is a significant imbalance, there might be something that needs attention. And you might need to experiment with ways to spend more time with other team members. The second thing to do is to reduce the private discussions. One-on-one time is important for team members, and you should try to maintain this with all of them. However, if you find yourself spending more time in private discussion with one team member, then consciously make an effort to reduce this time. The third thing to do is to spread the opportunity. Pay attention to the opportunities provided within the team. This might be through training, improvement projects, or delegating responsibility. Whatever the opportunity, provide team members with equal access wherever possible. Then you want to set clear boundaries. You want to get clear on your boundaries with all of your employees. This includes topics that are out of bounds, such as opinions of other team members or restricted company information, and also boundaries around the forums which are appropriate to engage in. You might also recognize the potential for bias. If you find yourself with a favorite employee, be aware of the potential bias that it creates. If you have an awareness of the potential challenges this situation causes, you're less likely to be unduly influenced. For example, you may be falling prey to what's called the halo effect, which means that when we rate one aspect of someone as being favorable, we tend to assume that they have other positive traits as well. In other words, we can become blind to the potential faults of a person because we just see them in a positive light all the time. And the last thing I'd suggest is to formalize the arrangement. If you have a favorite employee that you actually regard as a second in command to you, you need to try to formalize it within their role definition, which will include appropriate pay for the extra duties. When your favorite employee is not being financially compensated for additional responsibility, they may consider their compensation to be that greater influence or access to information that they have through you. So what you want to do is reduce that, and you want to make sure they're fairly compensated and they rightfully hold that position and formalize that arrangement, because otherwise you can be giving that perception of playing favorites. So, it can be hard to avoid playing favorites with your employees because it feels good to have someone you can confide in and rely on. However, you might find that other people aren't stepping up because they think you have a favorite and they have no chance. So imagine what could happen if you spread the attention and opportunity across the team instead of directing it at just one person. Now, I'd love to hear your comments on this one. Do you have a favorite employee? And how do you stop it from becoming a problem if you do? Let me and all the Thoughtful Leaders know in the comments on the show notes page, thoughtfulleader.com/271. And if you haven't already and you enjoy listening to this podcast, I'd love it if you could leave a positive review on your app of choice. It helps me get the word out about Thoughtful Leader, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for listening once again. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.